Last call to get your democracy on. Less than an hour to drop a ballot and have it count. Tonight, the races we're watching and the state leaders ducking questions on Election Day. The police officer acquitted of killing Elijah McClain could come back to the force and get a big raise. Community leaders say Aurora Police still doesn't track when its officers use force.
The name Elijah McClain, in my personal opinion, will also help us understand worldwide that we need to have police reform.
Guilty of a sick scheme to smear a political opponent with child abuse charges. A jury didn't buy her putting the blame on her police chief partner. And breaking ground on a museum to remember a fire and its impact. Many survivors are still rebuilding too. It's history as it happens tonight on Next.
It's election night in Colorado. The governor's big tax plan is up for a vote, and he is headed for the hills. But first, the Aurora police officer just acquitted in the death of Elijah McClain could be in for a huge payday. Here's Mark Salinger.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Nathan Woodyard, not guilty of
As soon as the not guilty verdict was read in court, Nathan Woodyard was eligible to return to his job as an Aurora police officer. He'll be met with a lot of money if he puts his uniform back on. When Woodyard was suspended in September of 2021, his salary was just under $85,000 a year. Even though he hasn't worked a single day since then, his union contract earned him a raise while he faced felony charges. He'll now make $100,000 a year. He'll also be entitled to back pay that he missed out on during his suspension, with a total of around $200,000.
We are advocating and encouraging that the city of Aurora do not reinstate him as a police officer.
Omar Montgomery is the president of the Aurora unit of the NAACP. After Elijah McClain's death, Aurora Police entered a consent decree to improve training and policies. Montgomery is the co-chair of the Community Advisory Council guiding the consent decree.
I want to see the consent decree improve our public safety system in the city of Aurora. What I don't want to see is 4 young ladies on the ground on a hot summer day because of mistaken identity. I don't want to see another situation like Elijah McClain. And I want transparency when we have a situation like Jordell Richardson.
A consent decree report released in October said Aurora Police still can't identify or track which officers have use of force violations. The report called these problems at Aurora Police extremely concerning. While other parts of the report show the department is making progress in areas like training and recruitment, Montgomery says Monday's verdict is a reminder that there's still work to be done.
I am hoping that we have a public safety system that we can trust and that we all can stand behind.
We asked the city of Aurora several times today whether Woodyard is an officer at Aurora Police right now, if he's still suspended, or if he's left the department. We don't know exactly why, but Aurora says that they can't tell us that right now. Regardless, the city charter makes it pretty clear that he's eligible for a lot of money, Kyle, if he returns now that he's been acquitted.
We can't lose sight of the fact that none of this was a foregone conclusion. The idea that anybody would ever be tried for Elijah McClain's death. The idea that we would have a consent decree. This did not happen immediately following his death.
Not even close. It happened years after his death. And this was only possible because of those protests, because of people like Shanine McClain, Elijah's mother, saying, we need change. We are standing up in Elijah's name for change.
Mark Salinger, thank you. This is your last call to turn in the ballot. Seriously, last call. You have 56 minutes and 30 seconds. Ballots are due by 7 p.m. Close to 1.3 million ballots returned, about 1/3 of active voters. Chances are, if you're real into politics or into the policies that impact our lives, you voted long ago. Or you are politics guy Marshall Zellinger. Dude, you love voting last minute. You do this every year, and it brings you such joy.
That's the difference between a reporter who stands in front of a ballot box and goes, "Olay, there's a ballot box over there," and a reporter who does something active, like drops off their ballot in the ballot box, which we'll get to in a minute. Kyle, as we heard in our debate, there is no plan B if Prop HH fails, which is the key issue I'll be watching tonight. The governor dodged the question of whether or not he would call a special session if it fails. And if it passes, the governor, Democratic Governor Jared Polis, is not even in the state to take a congratulatory lap. More on that in a moment. One more quick primer. If Prop HH passes, it'll minimize the increase of your property tax increase while allowing the state to keep and spend more money, which will eat into your Tabor refund. So what happens if Prop HH fails? What happens next? Well, I've created a nifty graphic to show what could happen, because a lot of what is in Prop HH could be done by the legislature without needing your approval. There are 3 parts of HH that can be done without you needing to say yes. The lawmakers can change the property tax math to minimize property tax increases. They can make the senior property tax discount portable and allow seniors to take the discount to their new homes. And they can make Tabor refunds equal for all income levels, which will only happen this next year if Prop HH passes. If it fails, Tabor refunds will be higher the more you make. There are 2 parts of Prop HH that do require your approval, which is why it's on the ballot in the first place. The part that raises the state's revenue cap, allowing the state to keep and spend more money each year, which also allows the state to keep a portion and perhaps all of your Tabor refund. Those cannot be done without you saying yes. Now, Kyle, before I do something active and turn in my ballot and my wife's ballot, I want to answer a question that we got from Derek about something that was on his ballot. It's actually on my ballot instruction, so it depends on the county. It says, it is a violation of law to receive more than 10 ballots for mailing or delivery in any election. Derek wanted to know, his question was, why does anyone get more than 1 ballot? Derek, this is just poor wording that's required by state law. You do not get more than 1 ballot. It basically means, and let's walk and talk now, you can turn in up to 10 ballots. So your ballot and 9 other people's ballots, or in my case, my ballot, my wife's ballots, and if I had 8 others, I could do that too. I'm going to drop these in and get out of the way because people besides me vote in the last hour, Kyle.
Wait, hold on. Did we just watch you ballot harvesting, Marshall? You'll hear ballot harvesting referred to like it's some nefarious scheme, but did we just watch you ballot harvest?
Yeah, when you hear that term, that's what I did. You can legally turn in up to 10 ballots. You're not voting 10 times. You're helping someone out. Hey, I can't get to the ballot box, so take it with you. And the people who don't like that created that term ballot harvesting.
Great. Now we're going to be back on one of those Illuminati websites because you just ballot harvested on live television. All right, Marshall Zellinger, buckle up. Big night ahead for the 2 of us. Thank you, sir. Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's making the media rounds for Election Day. Every single television station in Denver, Colorado Springs, Grand Junction, radio, national media. It's standard Election Day stuff for the state's chief elections official. But this year, she may face some interesting questions. Some she'll like, some she may not. In fact, Griswold's staff asked if she could have airtime on 9 News today. Then she declined to appear after learning the questions would come from our next team. Some obvious questions to be asked. The head of the Colorado County Clerks Association says go vote robocalls from Secretary Griswold have caused voter confusion around the state because they went out to Coloradans who had already voted. A group of voters is suing to force Griswold to take Donald Trump's name off Colorado's primary ballot. The judge in the case has donated to Secretary Griswold and to an anti-Trump group. The judge has faced calls to recuse herself. We'd like to ask Secretary Griswold about that, too. And then there are also the threats against election workers in Colorado from extremists, and the state Republican chairman's recent claim that Colorado does not have any fair elections. These are serious issues. We would have liked if you could have heard from Colorado's chief elections official on Election Day about all of that. We'll keep trying. Teachers union-backed candidates hold every single seat on the Denver School Board, but the infighting and the dysfunction is really something to behold. Enter Mayor Mike Johnston and a ton of special interest money, hoping to put 3 new voices on that school board. We've seen nearly $2 million in outside spending in the DPS school board race. School safety has been a focus after a series of shootings. DPS leadership has defended its policy of allowing students charged with violent crimes like attempted murder to come back to class. Now, the mayor is vocal with his frustration about the school board, and his allies in the charter school movement are spending big to elect these so-called reformers to the board. They're trying to unseat incumbents Charmaine Lindsay and Scott Balderman. And the mayor's also backing former East High principal John Youngquist in his citywide at-large race against Kwame Spearman. He's the former mayoral candidate and former CEO of the now bankrupt tattered cover bookstore chain. Spearman has the endorsement of the teachers union. Youngquist and Spearman are running to replace the board's most outspoken and controversial member. That would be Vice President Ayante Anderson. He was censured by the board for flirting online with underage girls, and he's now leaving the board to run for a state house seat. The fault lines for Denver's school board race are quite different than the dynamics in school board races across much of the rest of the state. From Denver suburbs to rural areas, it's conservative groups making a push to win control of school boards, and they saw some success with that in 2021. Our Jenny Meckles has the treat, the delight of keeping track of a few dozen school board races tonight.
That's one way to describe it.
Yeah. Here's the basic deal. This is no secret. Republicans have suffered historic losses across Colorado lately, so they've come right out and said they're going to focus on school board races for the time being.
Yeah, not even a new strategy this election cycle. Like you said, something we saw before. School boards are technically nonpartisan races, but anybody who has watched a school board meeting the last few years knows nothing could be further from the truth. These have gotten very political. 2 years ago, we started hearing about parents' rights groups fighting against mask mandates in schools, challenging curriculum. Now it's book bans, restrictions on LGBTQ students, and again, fights over what is in the curriculum taught in public schools. Tonight, we're following about 10 different school board races across the state where something interesting could happen. We've got a few boards that are currently controlled by a more liberal, a more teachers union-backed kind of group. But with enough open seats in this election that with a conservative push successful tonight, it could flip that board ideology. We're looking at Cherry Creek. We're looking at Poudre, Thompson school districts. We're also watching what happens in Adams 12, Brighton, 27J, and Greeley. All of these could see a push to the right or more firmly to the left tonight. There are also some boards, Kyle, reflecting conservative ideology already that could go even further right tonight, or they could dial back with a new slate of challengers, places like Douglas County.
Yeah, I think, Jenny, a lot of folks know, Jeff Coe was the focus of these battles for years and years. Then Doug Coe became the focus of the battles. They now have a solid conservative majority in Doug Coe. But then there's an even farther right faction that's taking over some other school boards in Colorado.
Yeah, a lot of press has happened around Woodland Park School District, this really small school district down in southern Colorado. And they made a lot of news lately because they passed a controversial social studies standard called American Birthright. It's the same thing that the State Board of Education rejected. This school district said, let's go. They have that same situation tonight. They've got a pretty conservative board, but it could get even further right, or the challenging could bring them maybe back to a little bit more middle ground.
This is where conservatives want to build up their bank of candidates to eventually run for seats in higher office in Colorado. Start on the school boards, then head to other places. All right, Jenny, thank you. If you still have your ballot, you have 48 minutes and 25 seconds to get it to a drop box by 7 p.m. That's also when the first results drop. It's not a conspiracy. It's the tallies of all the ballots submitted before Election Day. They were pre-counted. They're ready to go at 7 p.m. We'll keep you updated as results roll in. I will see you streaming on 9 News Plus at 7. You can find me on Channel 20 at 9 p.m. and then on 9 News at 10.
You don't ever involve someone's children.
Services worker found guilty of faking child abuse claims to retaliate against an elected official. And communities devastated by the Marshall Fire still taking steps to build a better future. It's local history as it happens. A former Arapahoe County Human Services worker faces up to 6 years in prison. Jury found her guilty today of calling in a fake child abuse claim against an Aurora City Council member. This afternoon, Robin Niceta was found guilty on charges of influencing a public servant and false reporting of child abuse. She faked a report saying that Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky had abused her son. It happened after Jurinsky insulted Niceta's former partner, former Aurora Police Chief Vanessa Wilson, publicly called her trash. Prosecutors argued that the digital evidence proved that Niceta Googled information on Jurinsky, including her address, before she faked that claim. They also showed the jury that it was her personal cell phone used to make the call. But Niceta's defense attorney suggested it was actually Police Chief Wilson on the phone. The jury didn't buy it. We spoke to Councilwoman Jurinsky after today's verdict. She wants Niceta to get the maximum sentenced.
She worked for Arapahoe County DHS for all 6 years, for almost 6 years. I think she should get all 6 years. You don't ever involve someone's children. I don't care what your issue is. I don't care how mad you are at somebody. You do not involve somebody's child, ever, ever.
Niceta was taken into custody on a $10,000 bond immediately following the verdict. She'll be sentenced in January. She's also facing charges for the fact that she faked a brain cancer diagnosis in the middle of this case, trying to avoid a trial. She'll be back for a court hearing on that in December. After another warm day, Kathy Sabins here with weather.
You know what? We've enjoyed our extended fall with temperatures above average in the 70s, but it's coming to an end tonight with the front that's coming in. The winds have been very gusty this afternoon. The snow is starting to fly in the high country, and winter weather and travel advisories are posted. Tomorrow will be a whole lot cooler here along the Front Range with this system rolling through, with scattered rain showers off and on throughout the day. The front has already produced temperatures in the 50s after days with 70s and record high temperatures over the last 4 or 5 days, and the winds have been super super gusty along the Front Range foothills, and those winds will start to die down. A winter weather advisory is out for the central mountains, including Summit County, for 4 to 10 inches of snow over the next 24 hours. We're dry in Denver tonight, increasing clouds, scattered rain and snow showers throughout the day tomorrow, about a ½ an inch during the day and maybe another ½ inch tomorrow night. And then when you wake up on Thursday, you'll be back to sunshine. Not much of an impact here in the Denver metro area, but you'll find accumulating snow in the foothills. A mild evening tonight with temperatures in the 50s. We have 47 with rain and snow tomorrow, and then a nice warming trend that'll take us back into the weekend with sunshine and 60s by Sunday.
We had a lot of irreplaceable things that we will never get back.
The Marshall Fire recovery continues in Superior. They know that the headlines today are history tomorrow, so it's time to preserve it. Feds are giving the go-ahead to Colorado's plan to reintroduce wolves on the western slope, and that includes rules on when wolves can be killed. Starting in early December, U.S. Fish and Wildlife will reclassify Colorado's gray wolves as what are called a non-essential experimental population. All that means is the state will have an exception to federal endangered species protections. Those rules prohibit killing gray wolves unless a human life is in danger. Under this new rule, Colorado can figure out other situations where killing a wolf is appropriate, like if a wolf is actively attacking livestock or working animals. As it stands, a wolf attacking a pet would not be eligible to be killed. It's been almost 2 years since the Marshall Fire tore through the town of Superior, and the road to recovery has been long. Town is still working to rebuild what was lost. That's homes, businesses, and starting today, a museum. The Superior Historical Commission and town employees broke ground today. They're working with the Denver design firm to create a new museum that will replicate the original mine camp house. Not only do they have to rebuild the museum, they also have to rebuild its collection. Replace the foundation, the walls, the roof, and so forth. But I mean, there was real history lost.
We had a couple members that had grown up in the coal mine. Their fathers were coal miners in the industrial coal mine here. And they knew a lot about the history, but they had donated things to the museum. One thing was a potbelly stove that had been in their house when they were growing up in the industrial mine. So we had a lot of irreplaceable things that we will never get back.
Superior has a temporary museum a few blocks down from the original. It's free to visit, and they're accepting donations from the community for anybody who wants to help restore that collection of theirs. We finish with some election night feedback next. Jamie writes in to say it speaks volumes about the integrity of NEXT that Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold is afraid to face you. I don't know if it's about facing us. I think it's just a matter that the Secretary of State knows that she's going to be asked basic but difficult questions about things that are in the news every day if she comes on this program. And she clearly believes, rightly or wrongly, that she can avoid those basic questions at other media outlets. It's kind of a shame all around if you think about it. Mars says, how do we know the drop box is closed at 7 p.m.? What if there is a line? So these drop boxes are monitored by elections officials and they are closed up at 7. My understanding is if you were actively standing in line at 7 p.m., then you were allowed to put your ballot in the drop box, same as if you're standing in line to vote, which nobody really does anymore. Shirley writes in with one that I love. My grandmother could not vote until she was 39, because women couldn't vote until then. I promised her I would always vote and would encourage others to do so. Go vote. You got 34 minutes.